Welcome everyone. This is the MasterClass. My name is Patricknazareth. I have around 30 years of teaching experience. I hope to be able to dispel your doubts should you have any. Today we study the chapter The Last Lesson, written by the author Alphonse Daudet. Daudet was born on the 13th of May 1840 in France. He died in Paris on the 16th of December 1897. He specialized in writing sentimental tales of provincial life in the south of France. Provincial life is when we write about the villages mainly. His first poems, his first novel, he wrote at the tender age of 14. He was himself a very compassionate human being, and his satire was tinged with a lot of compassion and pity for the people he wrote about. How would you feel if something with which you had grown up with from childhood is suddenly taken away from you? Let us look into this story. It deals with what happened after the Franco-Prussian War, which the people of France lost, and their province, a province which goes by the name of Alsace, was taken over by the Prussians. It is told through the viewpoint of Franz. Franz is a boy we meet in the beginning of the chapter who is frightened of going to school. Why? He has not prepared his lesson and is also late. He knows if he goes, he is going to get a good scolding, maybe even a beating. So he does not want to go to school. When he sees the bright sunshine, he sees the field on which the Prussian soldiers are drilling. He wonders, wouldn't it be better for him if he did not go to school? But he controls himself and he does go towards the school. On the way, he passes by the village square. The village square has a large bulletin board on which whatever happened in the last 2 years, the victories, the defeats, the draft where people were called upon to fight, are mentioned. He sees a crowd gathered around the board, but he hurries along to school. The blacksmith, Wachter, calls out to him and he says, "Don't hurry." Franz is confused, but his mind is intent on going to school, so he moves on. When he reaches the school, he finds something unusual about it. There is absolutely no noise coming from the school. Normally, children are shouting, children are reciting. There's the sound of drawers being opened, desks being banged. But today, silence. When he goes into the classroom, he fully expects to be scolded by Monsieur Hamel, who is the teacher. But instead, he is welcomed in. He finds that very strange. He sees certain other strange things. For example, his teacher is wearing his Sunday best, the best clothes that he has. He sees people, older people from the village, people like Hauser, who should be retired, people like the mayor of the village, elderly people, all attending the classroom, and everyone very quiet. What is going on, he wonders to himself. And then the teacher, Monsieur Hamel, makes an announcement that today's class would be the last taught in French. Since they had lost the war, the order has come down from Berlin, from the Prussians, that henceforward French will not be taught in the school. Franz, when he hears this, is very, very upset. He realizes that he has missed something. He could have come to school. Instead, he spent time running about in the forest. He spent time near the riverside. In fact, he took every opportunity he could to skip school. And now he gets to hear that this is his last lesson. He is upset with himself. Why did he not come to school when he had the chance? So the lesson goes on. It is a lesson on French participles. Franz is called upon to recite the participles. Unfortunately, he cannot. He is ashamed, he is embarrassed that he does not know his own language. But the teacher, M. Hamel, doesn't scold him. Instead, he lays the blame for Franz not knowing the participles on he himself. As a teacher, he says he has failed Franz. Instead of making him study, he has asked him to do personal work, like weeding of gardens. He blames parents of the children who come to school, who think that school is secondary. Sometimes the children would be better served by helping them on the farm, by sending them somewhere else to do some work, instead of forcing them to go to school. All this creates a greater atmosphere of sadness. The lessons go on. Grammar, writing, history. Everyone struggles. It's an emotional time. New copybooks are distributed by Monsieur Hamel. On these copybooks, France, Alsace are written beautifully, almost like little flags, proclaiming that the French language and the French people will forever be free. The lessons continue, and finally they end with the saying of the alphabet. by the smallest children. While the lessons are going on, the teacher, Mr. Hamel, looks around the classroom. He tries to take in everything. Remember, he has spent 40 years of his life over there. The vine that grows outside the classroom, he has planted it with his own hands. He looks at the trees outside. He has seen them grow taller and stronger. He looks at the desks in the classroom, 40 years of teaching, and how the desks are the only thing that remain. The children whom he originally taught have grown up. Now, of course, they have come back, as can be seen by the elderly people over there. But the desks themselves are worn. While all this is going on, the bell rings. It is 12 o'clock. The Angelus rings out. The Angelus is a prayer. Prussian trumpets sound. This marks the changing of the guard. Alsace is now no longer French, but a part of Germany. Monsieur Hamel tries to address everyone, but he is unable to do so. His eyes well up. He cannot even speak, so he takes up his chalk, turns to the blackboard and writes, "Vive la France," like we would say, Zindabad. And then, silently, again, not being able to speak, he dismisses all of them. Who are the characters in the story then? The main protagonist is Franz. He's a young schoolboy. He frequently looks for excuses to avoid going to school. We have Monsieur Hamel. He's a strict and a dedicated school teacher who has been teaching children for 40 years. Old Hauser is mentioned. He's an elderly villager. We have the blacksmith, Old Wachter. We have the mayor. There are the villagers themselves. Their presence in the classroom shows how the entire community is affected by this change in their language. It's a very simple setting. The entire story takes place at a village in Alsace, which is a region along the border of France and Germany, which has now been conquered by the Prussians. We look at the village, seeing local landmarks, like, for example, the field where the Prussian is drilling, where the bulletin board is up. And the other setting that is mentioned throughout the story is the classroom where the children are being taught, where Monsieur Hamel describes everything in and around the classroom in the school. What are the literary techniques that are utilized in this chapter? The first person narrative. Everything we see is told through the perspective of Franz. We see him as he goes to school, we see him as he discovers what has happened, we feel his sadness. Symbolism, for example, the French language. It shows how any language, not just French, can be a symbol for national unity, national identity, national freedom. There are contrasts beautifully employed. How Franz initially doesn't want to go to school, but then he regrets not doing so. The sound of the classroom as compared to the utter silence that he sees now. There is also the beautiful day that is outside, but inside there is something sad about the whole occasion. Foreshadowing. Foreshadowing is a presentiment, is a thought that something is going to happen, which we can know by understanding that there's a crowd at the bulletin board. Also, the Prussian soldiers who are drilling tell us that something is going to happen or has happened. The author employs beautiful visual imagery, like he describes the handwriting of the person, Monsieur Hamel. Metaphor, where language is described as the key to their prison. In other words, if the French people do not forget their language, they will forever remain French. If they start learning only German, they will become German. Sadness. We get a deep sense of emotion if you look at Mr. Hauser. He is old, he can barely read, but he's still struggling to read. He's overcome with emotion. We see this teacher, Monsieur Hamel, being choked up towards the end, understanding fully well that this is the last lesson he will ever teach in French to these people. What are the themes of the story? Most important, patriotism and language. The author is seeking to link language to a sense of nation. In other words, if you lose your language, you lose your nation. We also look at the value of education, how Franz and the villagers before him, who are now old, did not understand how important education was until they have come to lose it. There is regret in everyone's faces for different reasons. Franz regrets not studying properly when he could. Monsieur Hamel regrets not having given all his time to the students instead of asking them to do work for him. There is a resistance also mentioned. Somehow or the other, it comes out. Another theme is loss, upcoming change. This is a time when the characters in the story are understanding a new era is starting, where they will be learning a new language under a new rule. It also emphasizes duty, best demonstrated by Monsieur Hamel. He teaches with dedication, knowing that it is his final lesson. He tries to control his sadness till at the end he is so overcome by it that he cannot stop himself. That's the chapter then for you. I do hope I have been able to help. If I have, please remember to like, subscribe and share. There may be others out there who would require our help. Thank you for watching.